Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the MMA Corner Prediction Show. Tonight we are going to give you our thoughts, breakdowns, predictions for UFC Cruz versus Cariaso. As always, these episodes are brought to you by BattleBomb, the only pain reliever with the knockout power. BattleBomb.com. Check them out. Also, Bony Asai. I don't know what to tell you about them. They're the best weight loss product out there, the best health and energy drink product out there. Go to the MMAcorner.com. Halfway down the page, Vitor Belfort. Click on his face. Check that stuff out. They sent me a ton of this stuff before I signed on with them, and I got to be honest, I handed them out to a bunch of the fighters that I work with, and it's like crack for these guys. Seriously, they keep coming back, begging me for more. And I can't get Boney aside to send it to me quick enough to get it handed out. They love this stuff, so definitely go check it out. All right, I am your host, Josh Davis, alongside my co-host for the evening, head news writer at the MMAcorner.com, Jose Yan. Jose, what's up this evening, brother?
What's up, guys? How you doing? Fantastic night out here on the East Coast.
Yeah, you're a bastard out there on the East Coast. Out there, landlocked in the middle of Denver. It is what it is. All right, we do have an exciting
birthplace of America.
We do have an exciting card coming up this weekend, UFC 178. I know a lot of people were bummed with all the shuffling and whatnot, and they thought that this card was going to suck. Well, really, if you look at it from top to bottom, this is a pretty solid card. The prelims are solid. The main card is solid. And I don't care what you say about the main event. I always love watching Demetrius Johnson fight. He is one of the more exciting fighters out there, and he is going to come to put a whooping on Chris Cariaso, and if he's not prepared, it is going to be a whooping. But we've talked to Chris, and Chris tells us otherwise. He says he is prepared, and so I am excited for this fight. I think it's going to be a solid card. Before we get into predictions, though, Jose, give us your thoughts.
Well, somebody touched on this. I can't remember who it was, and they put it perfectly. Most fight cards are built from the top down. They start with a headliner, and then the headline is good. How good is the co-main? Co-main is good, and what's the fight after that? This fight is built from the bottom up. There is really no bad fight from the prelims card. You get Manny Gambiran, Ronda Rousey's best friend, great guy, tough veteran from arguably the best season of Tough, fighting Cody Gibson. Then you got the prelims, which is headlined by former bantamweight champion Dominic Cruz, who never even lost the belt. So you're getting to see a champion fight for free in his first fight in more than 2 years. We got Jorge Masvidal's been on a roll. Patrick Cote always hits hard. John Howard always interested facing Brian Ebersol. Always interested to see what he shades into his chest, and that's just the prelim. So if you're a casual fan, this is a great fight. If you want to test the waters to see if you're interested in the MMA, then obviously the main card, the pay-per-view card, is arguably the best fight card to date in 2014.
And that's a legit statement, because it literally, right now on paper, is arguably the best card to date. And if these fights play out like a lot of us think they will, I got to be honest, fight fans, if you're not shelling out whatever it costs you in the U.S. and Canada to get these pay-per-views, I will tell you, for me, where I'm at, it is $60. But if you're not shelling that out, you're seriously going to miss out, because it's definitely going to be exciting. All right, normally we just do the main card, but our good friend Jose asked that we break down Dominic Cruz versus Takeya Mitsugaki. So Jose wants something, Jose gets something. So we're going to start right there. Dominic Cruz versus Jose Mitsugaki. I'm going to let Jose start it off, but before we do that, I'm so happy to see Dominic Cruz come back, because there's not a fighter that I can remember, and obviously Frank Mir, when he got injured, was stripped and whatnot, but the money back then wasn't necessarily the same. And I can't remember a fighter other than Kat Zingano, who's also on this card, who's lost such an opportunity that Dominic Cruz did. If you remember, when he blew out his knee, uh, preparing to fight Uriah Faber, he was going to be the co-main event on Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen 2. That was the biggest pay-per-view card in history. He was set to get a significant percentage of pay-per-view buys. The guy truly did lose his golden ticket. And not getting that fight. He lost so much money. He lost such an opportunity there. And for him to finally come back, I'm freaking excited. Can't wait. Jose, start us off. Break this fight down.
Well, he also missed out on a chance to headline 169 Super Bowl weekend against Renan Barão, interim champion. That was champion versus champion fight, and he pulled his groin or something, so he lost out on 2 pretty sizable golden tickets. But I am also incredibly happy Dominic Cruz is back. You will not find a fighter more intelligent than him in the cage. I mean, if you ask him to break down footwork, you could talk to him for hours. He'll watch a fight and he'll break down the footwork, head movement, anything. He is incredibly intelligent when it comes to fighting. But Takeya Mizugaki's no joke. He's on a roll. He's defeated some pretty impressive opponents. He falls into that category of a Rafael dos Anjos where he wasn't written off, but he kind of came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden you look at his record, and he's strung, like 4 or 5 wins in a row. He's number 5 in the UFC's bantamweight rankings, and this is a perfect opportunity to show that he's not coming out of nowhere. He deserves to be where he is. He's not on the main card, but if he beats Dominic Cruz, which is obviously no easy task considering he's an undefeated UFC champion, only lost the belt because he got hurt. If Mizugaki can pull this out, then that's another contender for TJ Dillashaw outside of the Assunção Brian Caraway fight. So bantamweight is extremely interesting right now, a lot more interesting than when Dominic Cruz was fighting. But it's hard to pick against the champion, regardless of how long he's been out. It's similar to the Kaz Ngannou story of what you just talked about, how your head says pick with the champion because they haven't lost. Neither of them have lost in the UFC, but they have been out for a significant amount of time. And I'm pretty sure Frank Mir lost his first fight back after getting in that motorcycle accident. It's just octagon jitters are a real thing, regardless of what people say. So outside of Mizugaki landing that one big shot, I just think Dominic Cruz is just going to pepper him and do his phenomenal footwork that TJ Dillashaw copied and stole, and he's just going to pick him apart and pull out the unanimous decision.
And it's funny you say that because Dillashaw did steal that. However, it's worked for him. It's taken him to the top. Now, Mizugaki, the guy, is on the tear. He's won 5 straight, and he's won 6 of his last 7 fights, with his only loss being to Chris Cariaso, who's obviously fighting Demetrius Johnson for the title in the main event. So Mitsugaki's no slouch. The guy's a beast. And here's the thing. I don't know if it's just that I want Dominic Cruz to win so bad because, he is such a nice guy. He is such a good guy for the sport. Or if it's that I truly believe that he should win. And I do believe that he should win. He's the better fighter. Here's the thing. He hasn't fought in 2 years. 2 years ago, I still had hair. It was amazing. But that's not the case today. It's completely different. And a lot's happened in that amount of time. And not only did he blow out his knee, but like Jose mentioned, he tore his groin as well. And that's another injury that is not, it's not devastating. It's just very painful. It takes a long time to get back to 100%. And then you do lose some flexibility. You lose some mobility from it. I think Dominic Cruz finds a way to get it done. I don't know. I'm a believer, so I'm going with Dominic Cruz. I agree. He will get a decision. All right, guys, we'll move on. Main card. Open it up. Amanda Nunes versus Kat Zingano. Obviously, anyone who follows the MMA Corner knows that Kat Zingano is a good friend of mine. Her tragedy was horrific. Blowing out her knee in training camp, and then the horrible passing of her husband, Mauricio, may he rest in peace. It's just a terrible situation. But she's back now. She's ready to go. She's been ready to go for a while. She really wants the Ronda Rousey fight. That's the fight that she believes that she deserves. She's got to go through Amanda Nunes first. And it's going to be interesting to see. She hasn't fought since Miesha Tate, but she says she's ready. And so we'll see if the ring rust octagon jitters get her too, because Amanda Nunes is no slouch. She's a girl I wouldn't want to fight. She whoops ass. And if Kat's not ready to go, Amanda's going to put a beat down on her. But, again, I think Kat's ready to go. I think she's, again, going to prove to the world that she deserves that next title shot. Now, I certainly think she's going to start off slow. She's going to have to weather the storm. I think she's going to eat some punches. I think she's going to be tested. But in the end, I think Kat's going to find a way to get the victory. I look forward to probably get a third-round finish, just like she did in the Tate fight. Jose?
Yeah, that's exactly how I picture it going. I mean, she lost the first 2 rounds to Miesha Tate. Like, there's no doubt about that, but she did win. She won the fight. She knocked Tate. Going into the 3rd round, she knew she had to pull out the finish, and she pulled out the finish. So she knows she has that champion mentality where no matter where she is in the fight, she can always finish it. I mean, very few people can take a beating, or not even a beating, just like a smothering like she did, and come out and just plow through a top 5 fighter in the world, like former champion. And Kat Zingano did it, but I do agree with you. I do picture her coming out rather slow, lethargic. She has been out for a while. She's probably not going to want to test the knee right away. After the 1st round, you're going to see her start to get in the groove again, depending on how Amanda Nunes, because Amanda Nunes has dynamite in her hands too. Like she can put people to sleep with her hands. That's one thing she has that Miesha Tate does not have. So if she can finish Kat Zingano in the 1st round, which obviously is very difficult, she could pull it off. But as the fight progresses, you're going to see the Kat Zingano that you saw against Miesha Tate. And if it reaches the 3rd round, I do believe Kat Zingano will pull off another 3rd round finish, just like she did against Miesha Tate, because she's going to get those 2 rounds under her belt. She's going to get all the butterflies out. She's going to get that feeling where, oh, yeah, I remember how to do this. This is fun. And then she's going to just plaster Amanda Nunes with those dynamite knees she has. Like, you Google Kat Zingano, like the first picture you see is just Miesha Tate's nose crumpling against Kat Zingano's knee. And Kat Zingano's face is bloodied and bruised too, but she is putting her knee in the back of Miesha Tate's head. So that is, and if she wins, you cannot say no to her. Ronda Rousey has said Kat Zingano earns that shot. It's her title shot. So if Kat Zingano wins, which I do believe she will get the next title shot. Unless Gina Carano comes back. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah, that is a whole different story. But again, I think it's going to be a good fight. And you bring up a good point with the fact that Amanda is throwing sledgehammers. I mean, if Kat's not prepared to eat some shots, Amanda could definitely put her to sleep, because Kat is going to be slow. Amanda's going to hit her with some shots, and she's going to have to weather through that. I, like you, think she's going to do that. Again, that's 2 predictions for Kat Zingano from the corner, for those of you keeping track. The next fight on this card is one of the more interesting fights to me. We have Tim Kennedy versus Yoel Romero. Jose, start us off.
I love this fight. Outside of the main event, and this is my sleeper pick for most exciting fights, because obviously you have Tim Kennedy, who everybody knows the story. He's military. He's coming off the big win against Michael Bisping, arguably the biggest win of his career. Wasn't the best fight, but he did win every round, in my opinion, and against Michael Bisping, who was, everybody said, great takedown defense, gets off his back whenever he wants. Couldn't do that against Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy is he's built like a truck. He's just a compact truck who just does not turn off the gas. And I know he did lose to Luke Rockhold, so he's not invincible. And he's fighting who many consider, including 2008 U.S. Olympic wrestling captain turned #1 contender, Daniel Cormier, believes is the best wrestler in mixed martial arts, in Yoel Romero. And if you don't know who Yoel Romero is, and you don't believe me that he's the best wrestler, he beat Cael Sanderson in an amateur wrestling match. Cael Sanderson's the one that went undefeated for like 1,000 years. He went like 500-0 in amateur wrestling, and Yoel Romero beat him. He is a Cuban monster of a human being. He has the same genetics that Alistair Overeem has, where he looks like an action figure. He is a very nice guy. He hits. He puts you to sleep with one punch, an elbow, a knee, his takedowns are rattle the cage. If you put your hand on the speakers of your television and Yoel Romero hits a takedown, you're going to feel that bass from the cage shaking on his takedown. And the impressive thing is, he didn't even use his wrestling in the first few fights he had. He really showed it off against Brad Tavares. And Brad Tavares was like, he didn't really want to face Yoel Romero. He wasn't in the top 10. Yoel Romero destroyed him with his wrestling. Really the first time you saw him, Brad Tavares would come in for a right hook, he would be on his butt immediately. He would just get tossed. He would get speared. For all those former WWE, WF fans, he would just Goldberg spear him into the mat. It was unbelievable. It was such an amazing thing to see that a top 10 fighter could just be ragdolled that easily by this not even ranked UFC fighter. So Tim Kennedy believes that he can out-wrestle Yoel Romero. I think that's a little hard to believe, but it is an MMA fight. It's not a wrestling match. Everybody says that. John Jones has said that. It's not a wrestling match. It's an MMA fight. However, I do believe Yoel Romero will win. I do believe he will eventually get a title shot. I would have liked to see the winner of this fight CB Dollaway, but now that's not going to happen. So I don't know who's the winner is going to face, but I believe that Yoel Romero will pull off the upset, and Tim Kennedy will get just ragdolled. Not ragdolled, like it will be close in the last fight, but I think Yoel Romero is going to drop him on his butt a few times and pull off the decision victory, if not the TKO victory by elbows like he did against Derek Brunson.
No, I love this fight. It is one of the most interesting because Tim Kennedy, honestly, is one of the more underrated fighters out there. Yes, he did lose to Luke Rockhold, and Luke Rockhold clearly beat him up. He was the bigger, stronger, better fighter in that fight. Then he lost to Jacare, and that was a close decision. You know, I actually scored the fight for Tim Kennedy, so it really could have gone either way. But other than that, he's been on a tear. He's on a 4-fight win streak. He has a victory over Robbie Lawler. He's quietly whooped masses out there. Yoel Romero, a lot of people have said he's come out of nowhere, and maybe he has. But other than his fight with Brad Tavares, every fight he's been in ended in a KO or a TKO. This guy has wicked power, wicked wrestling. He knows how to, not only does he know how to wrestle, he knows how to beat people up when he gets them down. A lot of cats know how to wrestle and hold people down and basically butt rape them, but this isn't prison. This is an MMA. It's an MMA fight. The object is basically to beat somebody up, not just hold them down and sweat on them. And so Yoel knows how to do that. He's very Tito Ortiz-esque from back in the day, where he knows how to put on a beating once he gets someone down. And I love Tim Kennedy, and he always wins fights that I think he shouldn't. Here's another one that I think he shouldn't win. I think Yoel's going to be able to take him down. I think Yoel's going to be able to beat him up. I think Yoel's going to be able to put some leather on Tim's chin, and I don't see how Tim wins this fight. Now, with that being said, Tim will probably win the fight and, make me eat my shoe. But I'm going Yoel. I think Yoel is right now, I think he's the bigger, stronger, better fighter. And I think he's going to, again, I don't want to say shock the world, because you shouldn't be shocked, but so many people out there will be when he gets this victory. All right.
And I would like to add that Yoel Romero has the best nickname on the whole card. It doesn't get much better than Soldier of God. Regardless of your religious beliefs, that is an intimidating name.
Yeah, and to be honest, you gotta be a pretty intimidating badass to pull that nickname off. If that was my fight nickname, looking as he is, yeah, he's definitely sold to a god. I'll give him that. All right, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. I go back and forth on this fight. I love this fight. I'm a big believer in Dustin Poirier. He's been in some excellent fights. The Cub Swanson fight, for instance, was one hell of a fight. Yes, in my mind, he basically caved in that third round. Cub was able to break him and was able to end up picking him apart, dominate that fight, and get the victory. But I do believe that Poirier is one of the futures of that division, and I think Conor's gonna find that out on Saturday night. I love Conor McGregor. I think he also is one of the top guys that we'll be talking about over the next few years. But in this fight right now, I think Poirier's experience, I think he's the more technical fighter. I think he's been in there with better competition. I think Poirier's going to get this fight done. I'm going with Poirier on this one. How's that?
I agree with you. This is the one fight I've been going back and forth on, and I do believe that these are the two perfect fighters for the featherweight division. Conor McGregor is only 3-0 in the UFC, but I believe him injuring his knee last August was the best thing for him. He got to just take a step back. He wasn't rushed through anything. There was an itch for Conor McGregor to come back, and when he did come back, he exploded through Fight Pass on that Dublin card. I mean, that was about as impressive a performance as you can have, especially in a home country. Everybody said he needed a step up in competition. He needed to fight a veteran. Dustin Poirier has more fights in the featherweight division than any other UFC fighter. He's fought more than any other UFC featherweight in a UFC octagon. He's also in his prime, so he's not an over-the-hill fighter. You're not saying Conor McGregor, he's not a prospect, he's the present. Conor McGregor is the present. This hot, flavor-of-the-month fighter is not coming in to face like some over-the-hill guy. It's not like a past versus present. These are both two fighters in their primes, and they dislike each other. Whenever you get that, you can get the Dustin Poirier. I really don't want to see him try and just trade with him just for an ego battle, like, oh, I can out kickbox this guy. If that happens, I think Conor McGregor is just going to not walk through him, but that's Conor McGregor's bread and butter: kickboxing, striking, Muay Thai. Dustin Poirier has phenomenal stand-up, great ground game. If it goes on the ground, I'd give it to Poirier. He has a fantastic camp down in ATT. However, I think Conor McGregor is going to pull it out. I can't say how. I want to say decision because very few people finished Dustin Poirier. I think the only one that's finished him was the Korean Zombie in the fight of the year in the main event. So a lot of people are going to say the lights and all the eyes on this fight are going to put pressure on everybody. Dustin Poirier has fought on UFC 168, the biggest fight card of 2013. He's main evented against Chan Sung-jung. He lost in the fight of the year, but that was still fight of the year. He didn't crumple when the lights were on. So you're not going to get one of those Max Holloway. When you saw Max Holloway fought Conor McGregor, you got a sense that it was a little overwhelming for him when they gave Conor McGregor the main event trio, when they dimmed the lights for a prelims fighter entrance. You're not going to intimidate Dustin Poirier. He knows what he's doing in there. But I do think Conor McGregor will win. I don't think it will be such, like, win or lose, this is a good fight for Poirier. I think it will be a very exciting fight. I don't think he'll lose handily and get plummeted down the rankings. This is one of those fights where when the fight is over, people are going to be like, I paid $60 to see that kind of fight, and both fighters will benefit from this rivalry and possibly meet again and set up a possible trilogy fight, because that is one thing the UFC is missing since Dominic Cruz got hurt is one of those big rivalries between fighters. They almost had that with Dillashaw and Barao, but Barao got hurt or he hit his head. So this could be the next big rivalry below 155 pounds. But I do think Conor McGregor will win.
Yeah, Barao lost his testicles. That's what happened. Whew. You know, I certainly can see Conor McGregor winning this fight.
And I could see Poirier winning. There's no clear-cut favorite in this. It's a coin flip in my book.
It is, and I can't wait to see it. Now, it's funny that you bring up that Poirier has fought more fights in the featherweight division than any other featherweight fighter. He's 25 years old, and Conor McGregor is 26 years old. So, as you pointed out, they both are in their prime. Poirier, a little more UFC experience, but Conor definitely has more fights under his belt. So, we're gonna see these guys go at it Saturday night. I can't freaking wait. It is gonna be possibly fight of the year. Who knows? And another fact, you were right. The only person who has finished Poirier was the Korean Zombie by the dark choke
in a great fight.
Which was a beautiful fight. It was a beautiful submission. It's still a fight that I want to see again. So
agreed.
We'll see. All right, moving right along. Main event. Eddie Alvarez making his UFC debut. Donald Cerrone. Tough way to be welcomed by your new employer, but it is what it is. Give us your thoughts.
This is Eddie Alvarez. This is a happy story for Eddie Alvarez. If anybody follows the UFC or MMA outside of the UFC, Eddie Alvarez was long considered one of the best fighters not in the UFC. He's selling shirts that says Underground King, which is true. Everybody, diehard fans know who Eddie Alvarez is. He rarely loses, and even when he does lose, he lost to Michael Chandler in Bellator. But that was an unbelievable fight. Eddie Alvarez had some stuff going on outside of the cage. Everybody knows that. Still a fantastic fight. And then won in the rematch. So it's not like he just got and both fights were close. Some people scored the second fight for Chandler. But Eddie Alvarez coming into the UFC, great story, perfect opponent. Because even if he loses to Donald Cerrone doesn't have boring fights. People are going to remember this fight. Unless he gets just demolished like he did, like Cerrone did against Jim Miller or Edson Barbosa, that might be a little rough. But I think Eddie Alvarez will pull it out. He has a huge chip on his shoulder. He's just going to want to walk through him, showcase his skills. I think he has the perfect skill set to beat Cerrone, similar to Anthony Pettis. It's coming from the Black Zillions. Black Zillions are on a roll right now with Anthony Johnson and Vitor and Masvidal and Michael Johnson, Abel Trujillo. He's come from a great camp. I just think Eddie Alvarez this is his time. He's been waiting for this for years, and I'm going to pick this one with my heart, and I'm going to pick Eddie Alvarez.
First off, I love this fight. I know Donald Cerrone very well. Obviously, he's a Colorado native. I also interviewed Eddie Alvarez not too long ago about this specific fight and some other things related to Bellator and all of that kind of stuff. And the one thing about Eddie is he is a believer. And the one thing that he told me is I have a victory over everybody I fought. Now, there's not a whole lot of people out there who can say that. And yes, he has some losses, but he's also beat those guys as well. And so this is a very interesting fight for me. And had this fight happened, let's say, when Eddie was first supposed to come over to the UFC, he was supposed to fight Ben Henderson on Fox, get a title shot immediately, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, that didn't happen. But let's say that Eddie Alvarez was set to fight Donald Cerrone at that time. It would have been a completely different fight to predict. Right now, Donald Cerrone's on a roll. He's finally got his head together. He's not dealing with any octagon legal issues for stupidity like he has in the past. He's able to focus on fighting, And not only that, the UFC is keeping him busy. I mean, they are literally allowing this kid to fight every 10 weeks. And as long as he's able to do that and able to stay focused, he is one of the toughest guys in the lightweight division. There's no question Eddie Alvarez is a beast. I mean, that guy, he is a beast. Here's the thing. Right now, I don't know how he beats Donald Cerrone. I don't know how he deals with Cerrone's length. I don't know how he gets inside to land the punches that he needs to. And if he gets this fight to the ground, I don't know that, again, he'll be able to deal with Cerrone's length when it comes to submissions. I think Eddie Alvarez is going to struggle in this fight. I don't think he'll have any UFC jitters or anything like that. The guy's fought on big stages. He's fought in plenty of title fights. He knows what it's like to put on a show. I just think right now Cerrone's in the zone. I mean, his only recent loss was to Rafael Dos Anjos. First off, there's no shame in that loss. Second off, Cerrone just didn't even show up. He was flat the whole night. He never really got into a groove. When Greg Jackson was talking to him, he was off in La La Land. So I think the way to get it done. Now, I would not be shocked to see Eddie get in there, land a punch, put Cerrone on his back, and ground and pound him. But right now, the way Cerrone's just been running through people, I think Eddie Alvarez is in trouble. But we'll see. Again, this is another one of those fights where truly, in my mind, it could go either way.
And I would love to see the winner face Khabib for a #1 contender fight.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that.
Depending on how the Dos Anjos Diaz fight happens, because if one of those guys can pull out like a submission in the first round, that's going to be another wrinkle in the lightweight division.
Now, I'm pretty sure that based on the way everything happened for Eddie, that if he gets this victory over Cerrone, he is going to be fighting the winner of the Melendez-Pettis fight. I did talk to him about that and asked him who he wanted to face, and he did tell me that
I think he definitely wants to face Gilbert Melendez.
Yeah, without question. He said he had nothing against Anthony Pettis, thought he was a great fighter, and if that's who he got to fight for the title, great. But if it was up to him, based on all the stuff that's happened between Gil and Eddie in the past, all the trash talking, how Gilbert tried to go over to Bellator just so those two could fight, he told me he really wants that fight. That's the fight that he's hoping for. So who knows if it's in his future or not.
And even if Pettis wins, we gotta hope he can stay healthy again, because he hasn't fought in more than a year. It's like the second time he's done that.
Yeah, and the thing is, once you get certain injuries, dislocated shoulders, that kind of stuff, even though you have them surgically repaired, they're never the same. You work them so hard to get all that movement back, you're essentially breaking all the work that a surgeon just did. So they truly are never the same. So it will be interesting to see if the guy can stay healthy. Main event time. Demetrius Johnson, Chris Cariaso. Start us off, Jose.
Oh man, this is one of those fights where you hear it and you're like, I know the champion. I don't know who the contender is, but I guess that's the case with a lot of flyweight fights, I guess, nowadays. But this is Demetrius Johnson's fight to lose. He is pound for pound, I believe, top 5 in the UFC, and if he was in a higher weight class, possibly the #1. He does nothing wrong. That is one of the biggest things that Demetrius Johnson has that separates him apart from everybody in his weight class, possibly even the entire organization, where if he throws a punch, that punch has a purpose. He's not just slinging leather just because. If he sees an opening, you're going to get hit. If he sees an opportunity for a takedown, he's going to take it. He sees an armbar, he's going to take it. He showed in that John Moraga fight that even though he's in the 5th round, he's still looking for the finish at all times, and he took it. He attempted several submissions. Even though he didn't get it, he went right back to it and still finished on a former collegiate wrestler with an armbar in the 5th round, latest stoppage in UFC history. Fought Joseph Benavidez, who had Bang Ludwig in his corner. Everybody praised his striking skills. His striking skills had improved. That this was a completely different Joseph Benavidez than the previous fight. Demetrius Johnson knocked him out in the first round. That's a submission and then a knockout, back-to-back. Fights Ali Bagatinov, this Russian or Dagestani tank. Everybody said that he was going to be able to just physically be able to contain Demetrius Johnson. No such luck. Just got battered for 5 rounds. Lost 50-45. Or 50, I can't even remember the score. He got dominated. Well, Demetrius Johnson is like the definition of a dominant champion. The distance between him and the number 2 fighter is significant. It's incredible. It's like the heavyweight champion. Outside of Junior Dos Santos, there's very few that will be able to challenge Cain Velasquez. Demetrius Johnson is in that category. He's beaten, I think, 5 or 6 people in the top 10 and has beaten Joseph Benavidez twice. Technically beat Ian McCall in the first fight, but it ended up that whole scoring controversy should have been a draw, should have gone to another round, 4th round. Chris Cariaso is a great fighter, but he lost to John Moraga and he lost to Husier Formiga, who are both elite flyweights. His 3 wins in a row are not against elite fighters. If he didn't have 3 wins in a row, he would not be fighting for the belt. If he was in a deeper weight class, he would not be fighting for the belt. The only reason he is fighting for the belt right now is they needed an opponent for UFC 177 for the co-main event. They didn't think that TJ Dillashaw and Henan Barao could pull those numbers in like they did at 173. 173 had very low pay-per-view buys, and they had 2 Olympic wrestlers in the co-main event and Robbie Lawler in the 3rd fight on that card. They needed another co-main event for UFC 177. They decided 2 title fights will be good. They're 2 lower weight classes. They'll help each other out. Then obviously John Jones got hurt. They had to move. The only other one available was Demetrius Johnson, Chris Cariaso. They got moved to a headliner. I would have loved to see Ian McCall fight Demetrius Johnson for a 3rd time than Chris Cariaso. Chris Cariaso, great fighter, doesn't have a lot of wins over elite opponents. He does have a win over Mizugaki, like you said, but now Mizugaki's a bantamweight. He's a flyweight. I can't remember. Most of his fights end in decision. So, I mean, I guess he could I don't see a lot of ways he could win. He says he has better ground game. I don't think he does. He says he hits harder. He may hit harder than Demetrius Johnson, but hitting hard, you can't hit what you can't catch. So, I don't know. I would put money on Chris Cariaso because if he does win, that's a huge payday, but I would put that down just for the payday. Because I believe Demetrius Johnson will win very handily and then take the rest of the year off.
Yeah, I think Mighty Mouse schools him, to be honest. Couple things. That's who I'm speaking of here. Has 1 TKO finish in his UFC career. That's it. Everything else has been a decision. No disrespect to the guy. He's not an exciting fighter. No, he doesn't deserve a title shot. And he's talked a good game in the media saying, hey, if you want to know why I got the title shot, watch the fight, this, that, and the other. Well, we all know why you got the title shot. We cover the sport. You got the title shot because, like Jose said, there's nobody else in the division right now. I agree. I, too, would have loved to have seen a 3rd fight with Ian McCall. If John Dodson was healthy right now, obviously we wouldn't be seeing this fight. It's simply because there's nobody else, and they need to. He's contractually obligated to be able to fight, so they've got to get him fights, and unfortunately, this is what it is. I think Demetrius Johnson schools him. I think Demetrius Johnson is by far the best flyweight in the planet. His only loss in recent memory was to Dominic Cruz.
In Dominic Cruz's last fight.
And so, I mean, seriously, this guy's a beast. He's killing everybody, and he's going to school Chris as well. And that's no disrespect to Chris. He's just not on Dominic Cruz's level. Now, if for some reason, because it's a fight, anything can happen. If for some reason Chris does win this fight on Saturday night, you will see the most shocked person in the world in this guy right here. Because to be honest, even with a lucky punch, I don't see how he wins this fight. I definitely think that it's Dominic Cruz all the way. All right, guys, there you have it. The MMA Corner predictions for UFC 178, Demetrius Johnson versus Chris Cariaso. All right, Jose, give us your final thoughts on the card.
If you have, this is one of those fights where you should get everybody around the television and pool the money you did not spend on UFC 177 and buy this fight card. This is the best fight card of the year, and it's the perfect fight to kick off the fall. The last year's fight around this time, everybody saw Alexander Gustafsson and John Jones fight, and you know how that happened. Greatest title fight in UFC history. May happen again, probably not in the main event, but there are 4 possible fight of the nights on the main event card, on the main card. Best card of the year so far, hands down. Buy this card. Buy this card. Jose approves.
There you have it, folks. Jose approves. And to be real honest, Katzengano, Amanda Nunes, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez, Donald Cerrone. Those 3 fights right there will be enough to pay for the card. I promise you that. Then Joe Romero and Tim Kennedy, also a fight you want to watch. And then, to be real honest, guys, anytime you can see someone like Demetrius Johnson showcase his skills, it was kind of like seeing Anderson Silva before he started Dancing with the Stars. The guy is that good. So definitely, you want to check that
It's
out.
like back in the 90s when people weren't complaining that Mike Tyson was knocking people out in 50 seconds. They knew he was going to win. They still paid to see him. You're going to see one of the best fighters on the planet, and it's hard. It's the greatest flyweight who ever lived. So that's worth the money.
It really is. It really is. So there you have it, folks. As always, we want to thank our sponsors. Battle Bomb, the only pain reliever with the knockout power. BattleBomb.com. Check them out. And then Bonus Eye. Go to the MMAcorner.com. Your home for all things MMA. Halfway down the page, on the right-hand side, you have Vitor Belfort. Click on all the Bonus Eye products that you need. All right, guys, we will be back Saturday night to give you a recap of everything that did happen. In case you have to work, whatever, we got Bellator coverage, Legacy coverage, Titan coverage, all of the events coming up Friday night. We have you covered. Go to the MMAcorner.com. Everything that you need is right there. Until then, for Jose Young, I'm Josh Davis. Keep living the MMA Corner lifestyle. Peace, fellas.